members of the Bloomington Rotary Club for a while, you've seen Dr. Michael Monroe Kiefer a couple of times. Once when we were meeting back at the airport, Hilton, where he talked to us about memory. And why do I remember that?
PowerPoints. Yeah, I'm going to get that going. Thank you.
But the last time he spoke to us, he talked to us about goal setting. And if anybody remembers that session, what do you remember about that goal setting session?
The pumpkins.
The giant pumpkins, you know. And but Dr. Michael Monroe Kiefer, he's a good friend of mine. He lives in Farmington. He's got a lot of credentials that I will let him tell the group about. So I give you our speaker for the day, Mike Kiefer.
All right, thank you. Always fun to come up here and talk with you folks. You're like one of the most energetic groups I talk to, so it's great to be here. Some people were asking me for an update on my daughter, Lex, the pole vaulter at the U of M, and she finished her senior year at the U, and she had her best jumps of the entire season at the Outdoor Big Ten Championships in Iowa. She had a podium finish of 5th place for the University of Minnesota, the top 8 score points for the team. And she had her best jumps of the year at that Big Ten meet as well. So she graduated, she had her best jumps of the year, she qualified for nationals in Sacramento, California, so she'll be flying out tomorrow morning to compete in the national competition in Sacramento, California on Friday, and her teammate Carly Place also qualified for nationals as well, so they'll both be out vaulting in California this Friday. And she won the Coaches Award for sportsmanship and motivation and teamwork for the team. And they extended her scholarship to next year. So she's going to go to grad school at the U of M and vault one more year, her last year of eligibility. So appreciate that. Okay, so my presentation today, what am I going to talk about? Well, I'm going to talk about kind of a very close subject to my well-being and my heart and my knowledge and things like that. So I'm going to talk about genetics, genetic engineering, and improving your health, what I learned. Now, my background, as many of you recall, is in genetic engineering. I graduated from the State University of New York at Buffalo in genetic engineering, then got my master's degree in genetic engineering at Texas A&M, and then a PhD in psychology from Addison University. I'm going to talk about my diet because I'm going to talk about nutrition here today. So I didn't realize this, but my whole life is an experiment, okay? So I've been experimenting with my body all my life. I didn't know it until I turned 50, but I'll give you some of the experimental stuff. So basically, I'm experimenting with my diet for most of my life, unbeknownst to me. So high school diet, not unlike a lot of current high school kids' diets. Basically soda. I was basically a Coke drinker, so Coke was my preferential soda that I drank. Candy, pastries, cookies, pizza, ice cream, cake, red meat, milk, cheese, chips, and only white bread. Never could stand other bread other than white bread, and a lot of Wonder Bread, by the way. Pretty much no fruit or vegetables unless they were on a sub. Spaghetti and lasagna. I'm half Italian, so grew up in an Italian family. Of course, big on McDonald's hot dogs and ever popular bacon. All right. So that's pretty much, and that was kind of my childhood diet too. So it's not just high school. Got into college, learned about some new foods, chicken wings. And then also ate more subs. Cheesecake, that was kind of a new thing for me when I went to college, so I got heavy duty into that. Much more into donuts in college as well. And then pretty much a nightly habit, instead of a bedtime story, it was always cookies and milk before bed. So, and then when I got to Minnesota, I got introduced to mini donuts, which was really a new thing for me.
That rounded down to 7 food groups.
Yeah, pretty much. You're right. So that's been my diet, you know, that's what I eat. Through my 30s and 40s, 2 decades, pretty much no exercise, didn't really see any point to that. you know, most of my work on computer, doing presentations, and then doing research on the internet at night, things like that. So exercise was not something I spent time on, you know. I mean, I spent time on goal setting, research, motivation, helping other people, but not really taking care of my health or my body. So exercise was out. Breakfast, usually in the morning, 2 cans of Coke. I kind of upped that as I got older. Needed more than 1 can of Coke to stay awake. A couple of donuts. I put 2 donuts there. It's usually 2 to 4 is what I was having. Lunch, pizza, tacos. Tacos, kind of a new food group I added in there, and burritos. Afternoon snack, usually get sleepy in the afternoon, so I'd have candy bars and a Coke. So probably 3 cans of Coke a day on a regular basis. Dinner, red meat pasta, meatballs, and then I got introduced to Minnesota State Fair food, which was awesome. So pretty much everything they sell at the fair, and especially anything on a stick, would be in the food groups. Evening snack, I added chips to that to go along with the candy, cake pie ice cream, cookies and milk before bed. Favorite cookie, Oreo cookies right there. That was the favorite one, okay? So then I found it very difficult to go up 3 flights of stairs. My wife bought season tickets to the University of Minnesota volleyball team, and we usually sit in the upper deck, and by the time I got to the upper deck, I was about ready to pass out. I could see stars climbing those 3 flights of steps. I was hanging onto the railing. My wife said, "What's wrong?" I said, I don't know, I can't see straight, you know, I gotta sit down. And then I would go up 2 flights of steps, sit down on the steps, and then get up to the 3rd flight of steps, okay? So that started to bother me. I thought, wow, you know, something's not quite right. I ought to be able to make it up 3 flights of steps. So then when I turned 50, I had a stroke. I was 265 pounds, and blood pressure, 165/95. Cholesterol was 262. Had cholesterol deposits in my eyes because I had so much cholesterol in my bloodstream. I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, diverticulitis. I had 10% aorta heart blockage, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, prediabetes, and the doctor said I wasn't in good shape. So I said, well, you know, I should probably do something. And he said, oh, you're like lucky, you know, you didn't have a heart attack, you know, the stroke didn't incapacitate you. He said, no need to worry, I got lots of medications for you. He said, there's about 9 different meds that we can put you on, and you'll be like all good to go. And I said, what about like changing my diet or nutrition? You know, I heard about that somewhere, that if you make some changes in your diet, that would make a difference in your health. And he said, for you, that'd be like steering the Titanic with a boat oar. He said, here's all your prescriptions, take them down to Walgreens, get them filled out, and you're good to go. Well, I got sort of irritated with that, okay? I decided to do a research project on my body. So I went in and I had more studies done. So got the whole thing top to bottom, colonoscopy, prostate blood tests, extensive blood work. I did a full body CT scan, endoscopy. So I was all tested in a lot of these areas. And you should be too if you're thinking of making dramatic changes. I was in for a dramatic change. I wanted to make a dramatic change because I had a health crisis, so I decided that I wanted to make a dramatic change. Most people will not change their nutrition, their exercise habits, unless they have a health crisis, okay? And if I was listening to this talk 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I wouldn't really listen. I'd be like, oh yeah, that's some other person up there talking about eat your vegetables and crap like that. It's like, forget that. You know, I'm going home and having donuts and ice cream. I'm going to celebrate, okay? So I wouldn't have listened to a presentation like this myself unless I had had a stroke, okay? And that's the case for a lot of people. They don't make any change unless they have a heart attack, unless somebody close to them has a brush with death or something like that. So, you know, It's like listening to a presentation like this, you know, you're sitting there thinking, well, I don't need to worry about that because I don't have any problems. Well, I would suggest that you get some of these things checked out. In the past year, I have had 3 of my friends around my age have heart attacks. And it was because they had 60% blockage, 80% blockage, but they didn't know. And how would you know unless you went in and got tested? Okay, you wouldn't know how much blockage you have in your hearts or your arteries unless you went in to get tested. So I suggest everybody get tested because you don't want to start working out and doing heavy workouts or changing your diet dramatically unless you know where you stand currently. Okay, and early detection is a big key on a lot of these types of things. Okay, so anyway, that's my 2 cents in getting checked out. So all of my health problems were basically due to my weight, caused by decades of bad nutrition and lack of exercise. And this is the case for most Americans today. The elephant in the room is the elephant on the operating table, all right? New US study shows 40% of all cancers are directly related to obesity. Okay? So there's direct correlation with, you know, nutrition, body weight, and all of the things that people are suffering from. Strokes, heart disease, pre-diabetes, your A1C levels, etc. Alzheimer's, early onset Alzheimer's, all of this is related to your nutrition, your body weight, your exercise. So doctors a lot of times won't recommend anything in regard to nutrition because people are used to getting pills. All right, it's just, well, what's wrong with me? Well, you got high blood pressure, but don't worry about it. We got pills for that. Well, I got high cholesterol. Well, don't worry about that. We got pills for that. So, and a lot of times people are trained in on that. They'll ask for the pills. They'll be like, well, I know I got these problems. Do you have pills for this? And they're like, yeah, don't worry about it. We got pills for this. But they don't usually talk about nutrition. You know, and I remember sitting there with my doctor and I'm asking him about nutrition. He said, nutrition, just, here, take the pills. All right. So fear inspired my decision to do the research and to make the change. All right. Some embarrassment, but not too much. You know, I showed you that picture of my kids. They kind of liked the belly. They thought that was kind of neat. They draw pictures on it with markers and stuff and things like that. So I wasn't too embarrassed about that because it was like a fun playtime with the kids. But then I got scared, with the stroke. That kind of made me nervous. All right, so I made a decision to change, and my decision was, could I drastically change weight, blood pressure, and cholesterol without meds? Was it possible? Because my training in genetics was that you could not alter your cholesterol. It was genetically determined. If your parents had high cholesterol, you're going to have high cholesterol and things like that. So they said a lot of the levels that you have. Same with the high blood pressure, same with triglycerides. My wife got checked out pretty much at the same time I did. She had some major issues as well. Overweight, high cholesterol. She had high triglycerides. I didn't have that, but she had high triglycerides as well, okay? So we're thinking, could my wife and I, and she's trained in science as well, she's an immunoparasitologist. So I said, well, why don't we do an experiment as a husband and wife? This will be like a midlife project for my wife and I. I said, we'll see what we can do to change, to make a change. It's like if you're not eating well and I am, it's not going to work. We got to do it together. So she said, okay, I'm in. We'll try it. We'll do a husband and wife experiment and we'll see what happens if we make some radical changes. And you've seen these types of pictures on the internet with people. These folks have made radical changes. So how does this woman go from this to this? And how does this guy go from this to this? So I started studying people. I started studying nutrition. I started studying people that do these things to see how they're doing it and what's happening. And is there any scientific research behind it? So we started to try to do elimination of, quote, bad food, which was basically what I ate all my life, all right? So I tried to eliminate soda. Now, when I say no here, give me a grain of salt, all right? So, I mean, maybe I had 1 can of Coke a week, but not 3 cans a day, okay? I say no candy, maybe I had 1 candy bar a week, all right? So I don't want to give you the impression that I'm like totally in, you know. I mean, I did have breakdowns. But it wasn't 10 candy bars or 3 packs of cookies or anything, but drastic reduction from what it was before. Very little fast food, little pizza, little pasta, and I started to research how food is produced in our country. And when I was in college, my first job out of college, I worked on something called the Hager Project. And it was the genetic mutation of the growth hormone for pigs. And I was in charge of modifying that growth hormone with site-directed mutagenesis. So I actually changed the DNA structure of the normal pig growth hormone, altered it, we cloned it, grew it up in vats, isolated it, injected it into farm piglets to see what it would do. And most of the experimental formulations that I created for pigs did nothing. They had no effect on the pig. You take little farm piglets, you inject it with this stuff, nothing happens. Some of the variations we developed were toxic. They'd kill the pig. So you inject the stuff in the pig dies, okay? But we had one variant that turned the pigs into steroid pigs. So they started to develop huge musculature in them. And this was kind of what we were after. We wanted to reduce the fat content in pork and improve the meat content. But the problem is, if you take all the fat out of pork, it doesn't taste like pork anymore. It tastes like shoe leather, okay? So it's not very good. So our end result was we got more meat out of the pig, but the meat quality was no good. People didn't like it, okay? It's too tough, stringy, it's no good. And the pigs become extremely aggressive and carnivorous. So they eat each other and they'll only eat meat, okay? So you can't feed them vegetable or corn or grain anymore. They're after meat. So we'd feed them dairy cows and they'd eat the whole cow, bones, everything. Bones, hair, hide, and they're not manageable either. So it was a USDA funded project. They came up, they saw these giant carnivorous cannibalistic pigs we developed, and they said, we're dropping the funding for this project. 2 months later, the US Army came in and they confiscated all our computer files, took all our photographs, took all our DNA evidence. They tranquilized all the live pigs, loaded everything into black unmarked semi-trucks and shut our whole project down in 4 hours. That was an interesting day at work. Shortly thereafter, I quit. Now, the sister project to the PST project was the BST project, and I worked some on that, and that's the growth hormone given to dairy cows to increase milk production, okay? Also, I'll let you know our history of chickens in the United States. In 1955, there were about 3 pounds, 75, 376, 95, 46, and then in 2015, the average chicken is 6.24 pounds. Why is this happening? We've made some drastic changes in how we raise animals in this country. Pigs, chickens, cows, dairy cows, especially with the BST, okay?
What does BST stand for?
Bovine somatotropin, or BGH, bovine growth hormone. Bovine standing for cattle, cows, and then growth hormone or somatotropin, growth hormones. So what happens when you give a dairy cow BST, all right? It produces a lot more milk, okay? So it makes a lot more money for the dairy farmer, okay? But it also has side effects on humans. It is not the same growth hormone that is naturally occurring in the cow, and it's not the same growth hormone that occurs at the same levels in the cow, okay? So there's a lot more of it. So you have high doses of growth hormone that's been genetically altered. What does that do? It has an effect on people that drink it. Early childhood development, extreme weight gain, and allergies for most people, okay? So little kids drinking tons and tons of milk. Now don't just think it's the milk, it's the cheese, it's the butter, it's the ice cream as well. It's in all of it, not just the milk, okay? So anything produced from that cow is going to have higher concentrations of genetically altered BST. It's going to cause extreme growth, early development, early growth. Also going to impact your diabetes, A1C levels, obesity, they're all linked together. Hormones, sugar, causes you to take in the sugar, translate it to fat much quicker. Trans fats is another problem. It's partially hydrogenated vegetable oil. When combined with sugar and salt, has an addictive effect on at least 50% of the general population. What's it do? It makes you hungry and want to eat more. Half of the population has a genetic predisposition to being addicted to trans fats when they're combined with sugar and salt. So you want to eat more of it. You can't eat just one chicken wing. You got to have 10. You got to have 20. You can't eat just one Oreo cookie. You got to have the whole strip or the whole pack. You can't eat one mini donut. You got to have more. So as you eat those things and you want more and more and more, it stimulates you to want more and more and more. You have a genetic predisposition to trans fats. Food producers know this, so they add it to the food so that you'll buy more, eat more, and be addicted to their types of foods. Foods high in trans fats, almost all fast foods, pies, French fries, fried foods, donuts. Crisco is partially hydrogenated vegetable oil. Cool Whip is partially hydrogenated vegetable oil mixed with sugar. I remember Thanksgiving when I was a kid, I'd throw the pie away and just eat the whole thing of Cool Whip. All right, I want all the Cool Whip. That's all I want, just the partially hydrogenated vegetable oil and sugar. What do trans fats do? They form blockages in your arteries and veins, and they build up over time. The stages of plaque build up in your veins, so you hear people got 80% heart blockage and they go in for quadruple bypass, because over time they form small plaques and then they get larger and then finally they build up and they block the whole artery. A lot of that is caused by trans fats. So you can't exercise your way out of a bad diet. This is why you see people 25 years old dying of stroke, dying of heart attacks. You see an athlete 30 years old and they collapse of a heart attack. Why? This is part of the reason. So you've got full control over what goes into your mouth. Think before you eat, all right? Genetically modified foods, you get what you pay for. My recommendation, buy organic. Costs more, but you get what you pay for. Try to reduce milk, cheese, ice cream, butter. Meats have antibiotics in them, almost all of them, unless you read the labels. The organics don't. Eggs, they're also going to have antibiotics unless you read the labels. And all cheap micro-chow and boxed foods have trans fats, high sugar, high fat added to them. One of the milk varieties that you folks can buy, which is going to be a good variety as far as milk goes, is Fairlife milk. And anything made by Organic Valley. Top quality, high organics, no BST in it. Most people can radically improve their health with better nutrition. My results, 265 to 215 in 8 months. Blood pressure, 117 over 72 from 165 over 95. Cholesterol, 262 to 197, and I don't take any meds. My wife got pretty much the same results, okay? So drastic decrease in weight, blood pressure, cholesterol, and my wife was able to get the triglycerides drastically reduced, all with extreme nutritional changes, no meds, and nothing different than that. So just what goes in. Think about it like this, you know, you go out and you buy a brand new sports car, are you gonna put diesel fuel in it when it takes gas? How long is it gonna run on diesel fuel? Are you going to put dirt in the tank and have it run good? Probably not, okay? So you're going to take care of your car. When you buy a new car, my suggestion is take care of your body, okay? And I didn't do it.
Are these results with exercise?
Limited exercise, not a lot. About 20 minutes a day, 15 to 20 minutes a day. So we did add exercise, 15 to 20 minutes a day. All right, now here's what I want you guys to take away from this. As a genetic engineer, I'm telling you that genes can be turned on and off to express diseases by bad diet or turned totally off, okay? So you can alter your genetic expression of latent onset of diseases such as Alzheimer's, diabetes, different types of heart conditions. These things can be reversed with diet. I never believed that when I was in school. I was trained in genetics. They said, once you got it genetically, you're gonna have it forever. Your dad had Parkinson's, you're gonna get Parkinson's. Your mom had Alzheimer's, you're gonna get Alzheimer's. Your mom had breast cancer, you're gonna get breast cancer. This is not true, okay? This is not true. Your nutrition can control the expression of genes, turning them on or off. And they've done a number of experiments where they simply alter the nutrition in different animals and in people, and they find that the genes will turn on and turn off based on nutrition. I find that fascinating, okay? A vegan style diet is the best. It's super difficult to do this, okay? I'll tell you, it's super difficult to do this. But that's actually the best. Not eating added sugar, little to no meat, little to no dairy, little to no oils, little to no processed foods, and no trans fats. The experiments were done with this type of diet, and they find the genes go on and off for different types of diseases. Also, most doctors will say arterial sclerosis cannot be reversed. That can be reversed as well. You guys want to find out more about genetics, about food, about health? This book right here, the China study, most extensive study on nutritional changes in humans and animals, remarkable studies done in people with cancers. The cancers have been shut off, reversed, no chemotherapy, no radiation therapy, just intensive extreme diet changes, okay? So, you want to find out more? This is where my research led me. This is my current area of study right here. Looking at this China study, looking at how they did it, what happened with the genes, how the people altered the different diseases that they had, including diabetes, type 1 and type 2 diabetes. My niece is a researcher at Yale in diabetes. She's going to be looking into some of this nutrition changes as well for some of her research grants on turning genes on and off for diabetic kids. So, thank you for your time.
Time for questions. Take a couple of questions.
Yeah.
We have time for a couple of questions. Go ahead.
The most important message from your speech right now is that this should be taught as kids are going to primary school and
Yeah, he's saying,
rather than doing it at this stage of the game.
right, the question is, you know, kids should be taught this stuff when they're in school, and I agree with you 100%. Very good. Yes, go ahead.
I find that doctors are not willing to prescribe all this full testing.
No, you have to ask for
They
it.
want to say, I want all this testing.
Right.
That doesn't necessarily mean you're going to do that.
No, they will if you ask for it. Yeah, they're not gonna say that you need this or you need that. I went in and I asked for it. I said I want a full body scan.
Full body scan?
Full body CT scan. Yep. It's $3,000.
So, in other words, you pay for it.
Yeah,
Okay.
I paid for it.
All right.
Yeah, no, they have to have a reason, and a lot of times just because you got high blood pressure, that's not going to warrant them doing all this stuff. No, I asked for all this stuff, and then I had to pay for it.
I mean, if a relatively healthy person goes in and says, I want all this stuff, I wonder whether they would actually do that.
You get what you pay for. If you pay for it, they'll do it. Yes, go ahead.
What about daily fasts? You know, there's been some literature about 12-hour fasts every day, don't eat after supper till you eat breakfast, cut out all the snacking. So did that play a role in what you found? And you yourself and your wife, do you do the 12-hour fast every day?
I have never done a fast, and in most of the studies that I've researched where I'm telling you about, they can get this arresting of tumors or they get the reversals of the atherosclerosis and stuff like that. They have not done fasts. What they've done is intensive increase in vegetables and fruit and nut eating and a virtual elimination of the added sugar, added fat, added oils. So that's what I say when I'm talking about a drastic nutritional change, because I told you what I used to eat, which is basically sugar, fat, partially hydrogenated vegetable oils. So for me to reverse that and start eating vegetables, fruits, and nuts, which I never ate for like 35 years, that was a radical change for me, okay? And those are the types of changes that they ask these people to do that have the various illnesses, okay? Go ahead.
I noticed that you had whole milk up there as the thing that you added to tea. Is that because when you have reductions in the fat percentage, they basically substitute carbs for the fat, or what?
I used to drink skim milk, but skim milk usually has a higher sugar content than the whole milk. And the bad thing about the whole milk, they say, is the high fat content. But, you know, I mean, it's best to eliminate the dairy, but I haven't been able to do that. Okay.
Low carb diets?
That's better, yeah. Low carb is better, okay.
We have time for one more question.
Go ahead.
Just a comment. Anybody who's thinking about going vegan, you got a real issue with proteins and vitamins to get it balanced properly.
You don't have a problem with the vitamins. You have a problem, you may have a problem with some of the proteins. However,
It's a matter of balance.
yes, you are correct.
Vitamin B12 is a critical vitamin.
You are correct, yep. So I'm not again, I didn't suggest going with the vegan diet. I'm saying that, and I don't do that, all right? The more you can get toward that, the better off you are. I mean, I still eat meat. It's just I don't eat like 2 steaks for dinner. I'll have a small portion of meat, okay? Yeah, one more.
Last one.
Just really quick, I went to the organic milk, the one that, what's Happy Valley?
Organic Valley is what I listed, but there's others.
I went on 2% and I thought I died about heaven compared to skim milk. It had no flavor, or whatever flavor was there was not. The other milk tastes like chemicals to me.
A lot of people will notice just a drastic change by going to, if you're a milk drinker and you go to organic milk, you'll notice a big change in allergies, how you feel, mood, etc. So a lot of people are very sensitive to the milk, and they're also very sensitive to the BST in the milk. They just don't know it, okay? If you got more questions, I'll stick around afterwards. Happy to talk with you guys. Happy to tell you more about my story, my wife's story. I've got other presentations on the China study and things like that. So I'll stick around here as long as you guys have questions for me. Thank you.